Or like I've even heard people say stuff like, devil didn't take a day off, why should I? And I'm going, well, that's not exactly who we're wanting to be like. You know, we want to be like God, who didn't need a day off, but he did.
Hey, hello there. Welcome to Oaks Insider, where we're helping people build and drive culture in the local church in their everyday lives.
Awesome.
Hey, guess what we're talking about today?
Rest.
Have you ever needed to?
Man, that's probably a big area of my life that I focus on, trying to work on all the time, but I am constantly having to get intentional.
Well, why do you even do it? Like, what happens if you don't rest?
Well, first of all, the obvious is you get a little cranky.
You got cranky before?
Well, I don't think I do, but Jenny says I do. And so I got to listen to her. I mean, I think you're not thinking as well. You're not as focused on what's going on. You can get sick. I mean, there's all kinds of things like that. But I mean, it's such a big deal that God put it in the Big Ten. You know, that hey, make sure every week, 10 Commandments. You know, so he's putting it right there on the level of murder and, sleeping around, all kinds of bad stuff he's got in there. And one of them says, make sure you're keeping the Sabbath day holy, set apart, that you're keeping it as something that is unto God, that we're trusting. And there's a lot that goes in. I mean, do you struggle with this or what's with you? You got it all the time?
No, I don't have it all the time, but I think I operate pretty restfully. Maybe in comparison to some of the more high-powered leaders around here.
Really? Why?
I don't know. I've always...
You're more disciplined at it, or you just
know that
don't
Enneagram thing or whatever that everybody does?
The Idiotgram?
Yeah, Idiotgram. When it tells you kind of, there's one part that says whether you're self-preserving, like you have a preservation bent, that's mine.
Okay.
So I'm constantly
even more of a tendency towards that.
Yeah, so it's natural.
So with me, it's like I know I need it. It's important. In fact, I have to kind of strategize. Hey, I'm going to have to travel here. I got to come in here. I'll try to make sure before I speak. I mean, I've got time. I'm scheduling that in. It's not just like maybe I will. I'm making my schedule to say I'm going to be quiet.
So you're purposeful. It has to be with specific intent because it's not as intuitive for you.
Even though you know intuitive, and I feel as though that the way my life is scheduled, and there's a lot of times there's things that come up that I can't predict that are coming up that I have to do it. So I'm constantly, setting a priority on it. And I think that's an important deal. I think another part of it is sometimes people don't rest. It's not just because it's not intuitive, all this, but I think it has to do with even the trusting in God that, we have such a culture that some of us can think, man, if I don't work all the time, then, dude, you don't work, you don't eat. Well, that's a biblical truth, but there's also the biblical truth that if you don't rest, you're not trusting. That part of sabbatical is saying, I trust that God, if I set aside a day to honor him, to be with him, to rest, that I'm trusting that he'll cause the other 6 days to go further and be more productive than if I would have just worked all 7.
And you said something at the beginning, it's really profound. It's actually God's design to rest. It's actually his plan and his command that we take time to rest and reset on a regular basis.
So I think the reason why we're doing this as an insider is that I think if you're an insider, most of you are really people who care, people who want to do well, you're leaders, you're people who are invested in the things of the kingdom. This is one of those that sometimes we can even get like every other area right, but this one we struggle with, like, it's not really that big of a deal. It's just I didn't get as much sleep or whatever. I'll get it when I can. Hey, I'll sleep when I die. I mean, it's crazy.
Right.
Or like I've even heard people say stuff like, devil didn't take a day off, why should I? And I'm going, well, that's not exactly who we're wanting to be like. We want to be like God, who didn't need a day off, but he did. In fact, how did he create? He spoke things into existence. And in the Hebrew there, when it says he took a day off, it means he took a breath.
That's powerful.
He breathed in because he had been breathing out.
Right.
So it's not even like he had to. He did it to what? Set up the model and the importance, the value of his design, how he made us to rest and to trust in him.
I love it. Okay, so how can we land it for people today? What's the next action step? What's something they can do going forward?
I think this rest deal is a big deal in the sense of not just about sleep. So you got to make sure you're getting, and you need to probably think ahead of time. Like for me, I needed at least 7 hours. I'd like to have 8, and some people are going 8 hours. I can't really. I mean, I that's just how it is for me.
Me
And
too.
I think different people are different ways, perhaps. I mean, but whatever you need to put in there as a priority and try to go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, prioritize that, and as best as you can. I think that's wisdom. But then I think there's also the rest that comes that God has designed a rest for us. And it is a spiritual rest that you might get sleep. Man, I know there's sometimes I just go, I am tired. And somebody says, well, go take a nap. Well, it ain't that kind of tired. There's a spiritual rest, a mental rest that we come into. And I think that's a rest that comes into with prayer and casting our anxiety on the Lord. A rest that comes in by having some professional burden bearers and people around us. Listen, I'm giving out so much. So I'm not trying to keep coming on a counseling deal or like having people in your life to talk to that are down the road from you and just saying it all the time. I'm just saying it in the sense of this. If I'm going to keep giving out and I'm going to be at a high-powered level of giving out, I have to have at that level of intensity or intentionality of means for me to rest coming back.
Right.
Or I'll give to a point of not having anything replenished to give.
Right.
And so I think the takeaway is on sleep, but then your mental and emotional and spiritual rest. How are you doing that? Take a look. Talk to your spouse. Talk to somebody, a friend that's better at it, and say, hey, how do you see me? Am I getting enough rest? Am I walking in the peace? You know, the peace of God comes with the pace of God.
Right.
So if I'm walking at His pace, that's where the peace is. If I'm not, then you're not going to have peace.
Yeah. Okay, so we want you to be able to walk away with some action steps. So what is it that you need to consider in thinking, do I need to take a look at physical rest? Do I need to take a look at some spiritual rest times? And am I getting enough, or am I feeling stretched? Am I feeling a little stressed?
And we're talking about this because we love you
and
care about you. And I want you to do well, not just do well, but be well and do well for a long time.
Exactly. So make sure you're doing it. Take a next step and see if you can apply this immediately. And we're going to continue the conversation here at Oaks Insider. We'll see you soon.
Thanks so much for joining us today for Oaks Insider. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it. Stop right now and do it on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Spotify or Google Play. Subscribe so you can get this easily every single week. And if you're not following us, at Oaks Church TX, that's for Texas, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, thanks for joining us.